Hi, my name's Rob Barnett and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of V-Line. Welcome to V-Line's Induction for Contractors. V-Line is the largest provider of regional public transport services in Victoria. As well as operating 1,400 train services and 600 coach services every week, we also manage 3,600 kilometres of regional rail track and more than 80 railway stations. Although V-Line has almost 1,500 staff across the state, we also need specialist contractor skills to help us provide these essential transport services to the Victorian public. V-Line operates in a complex environment. There are a range of issues to be considered before starting work with us. These issues include safety, regulatory and environmental compliance. This induction will provide you with an overview of our management system. This system will detail our policies and procedures to ensure that you and everyone else remains safe, that appropriate care is taken of the environment. You are aware of our legal responsibilities. You know how to respond in emergency situations. V-Line takes its responsibilities very seriously. We expect that all of our contractors will follow our procedures when they are working for us. If you do not follow our procedures, there is a high probability that you may be breaking the law. Through the rest of this induction, you will get more specific information which must be followed when you're working for us. I will talk to you at the end of the induction, but let me leave you with one thought. Your safety and that of others must never be compromised when working on the railway. See you soon.
Hi, Pete.
Hi, Pete. You've already heard from Rob Barnett, V-Line's CEO, about how important safety and the environment is to V-Line. We take our commitment to keep people safe very seriously. That includes our employees, the public, and you, our contractors. Likewise, we are committed to protecting the environment in which we live and work, and we expect everyone who works with us to have the same commitment. Now, to work with V-Line, you need to be qualified, you need to be competent, you need to have insurances in place. If you're working on or near the rail line, you need to pass a medical and have track awareness training, and you must complete V-Line's induction program. If you're going to be working within the danger zone, and that's within 3 metres of the rail line, or if you undertake any type of maintenance work for V-Line at any of our sites, you must complete the induction. Once you complete the induction, V-Line receives a notice of your name and your company name. We'll record this information in our database, and for those of you who work in the rail environment, we will issue with a V-Line contractor identification card. When you're on site, you must carry this card with you and present it when asked. And we've developed a contractor handbook that covers all of the requirements of working with V-Line. You need to know what your obligations are when you work with us. The handbook is available on V-Line's website. If you need a copy, just let us know and we'll get one to you, or as many copies as you need. You need to make sure that any of your employees and contractors who work with V-Line are aware of the handbook's contents and that they comply with them.
When you work with V-Line, you must be fit for work. That means zero alcohol and drugs, not being fatigued and being medically fit. If you take medication, you must tell your V-Line contact.
So these days, it's pretty common for companies to have zero alcohol and drugs policies. Any company that operates in the rail environment has the same requirements. So if you can't work with us, you won't be able to just walk into somewhere else doing the same thing. Remember, this is about keeping everybody safe. We can't have people on our sites who put themselves and others at risk. And remember what your mum told you? Make sure you get a good night's sleep. Fatigue can affect mental and physical capacity and increases the possibility of an accident. If you're a smoker, don't forget it is illegal to smoke indoors and in undercover areas. That means that if you're on a station, you can't smoke when you're under the station canopy. And please take care when you're extinguishing your butts. There are plenty of instances where a cigarette has started a fire because it hasn't been disposed of properly. V-Line has a code of conduct and a number of policies that relate to workplace behaviour. All our employees and contractors are required to comply with these. This means no bullying, no harassment, no discrimination. Let me assure you, V-Line does not tolerate bad behaviour in our workplace. If you are found bullying, harassing or displaying any form of misconduct or menace, you will be asked to leave and your status as an approved supplier may be removed.
And look, likewise, if you are subjected to any of these issues, please report it to your V-Line contact. You must ensure that your employees and subcontractors who enter V-Line designated areas or premises acknowledge, accept and fulfil the following requirements as a condition of entry. Informing the nominated V-Line officer of your requirements to enter and leave the site, entering through the designated entry point and signing in and out where required. Not going outside the designated work area, so that if you were to want to extend beyond those boundaries, you need to talk again to your nominated V-Line representative. Following all signs and any safety and environmental management directions given by V-Line personnel. V-Line permission must be provided prior to access to the track. Contractor ID and track awareness cards must be carried at all times. Now we'll talk about incidents and emergency procedures. You must be aware of and understand the emergency procedures for incidents in the area in which you and your employees or subcontractors are working. You or your representative must immediately report any incident involving personal injury, property damage, hazardous condition or near-miss occurrences. If there is an emergency, you need to ensure your own safety first. Before going in and getting yourself injured, make a good assessment of the area and make sure that any other people in the area are cleared from any immediate danger. Where emergency services are urgently required, make sure that you use and call 000. And if it's something that involves a track, don't forget to call train control, who may stop any approaching trains coming from within the vicinity on toll-free number.
So remember, before you can work with us in the future, you must complete an induction. You must demonstrate your competence with appropriate and relevant qualifications. You must have insurances in place. You must be track awareness trained if you're working in the rail environment. You must take personal responsibility for your actions. Use of all forms of alcohol and drugs are banned when undertaking rail safety work. It's zero alcohol and drugs when you're working on any V-Line site, and no smoking. And don't forget, you need to have a purchase order before you do any work with us. You're going to get a lot of information in this induction. If you're not clear on something or you want any further details or copies of any of our policies and procedures, just make sure you ask. You can either ask your V-Line contact or give us a call at our V-Line head office, and we'll give you the numbers at the end of this induction program. So your safety matters to us. Be a star. Think safe and think green.
And just to reinforce that, Pam, I'd just like people to understand that we want you to go home in the same condition as what you were when you came to work this morning. Thank you.
Pete, I've been thinking about the way that we engage our contractors in infrastructure, and I think we have two types of contractors that we need to talk about. The first kind are our supplementary manpower that work with our guys in the field, and the second type are the contractors that we hire to do discrete tasking and maybe working away from our people. I want to make sure that both groups are working safely in our rail corridor. I want them to come to work and leave work safely and in one piece. We know we've got a dangerous environment that we work in. So what do you think are some of those dangers that we might need to tell those contractors are about?
Yes, Andrew, you're right. There's plenty of dangers in the rail environment. There's the visible things, the trains, the plant, the equipment, the machinery we operate, the locations we work, bridges, cuttings, embankments, things where access is made difficult and it could cause problems for us working safely. There's also the unseen dangers, the signalling systems, some of the wayside infrastructure, cables in the ground, other services in the ground that we also need to be aware of to ensure that we can do our job safely and get home at the end of the day.
Pete, I guess the question then is, how do we manage our contractors out in the field?
That's a good point, Andrew. It's important that our contractors understand there is a single point of contact for all their day-to-day activities, their access to work procedures and V-Line policies, and understanding the dangers that may be in their work environment.
All right, so we know our contractors need a single point of contact. The first thing they're going to want to do is have a site induction.
The site induction will include such things as an overview of the site, what site activities are being undertaken, control of safety, environmental hazards, site amenities, access, emergency arrangements, any specific rules and procedures, and the communication mechanisms the contractor must follow in his day-to-day work.
Okay, Pete, we've given our contractors a site induction. The next step is the job start meetings.
You're right, Andrew. Every contractor that starts with V-Line needs to have a pre-job start briefing. These meetings are held to raise safety awareness of the tasks they're going to do for the day, highlight the hazards and risks associated with the work they're doing, and remind the work crews of the controls to be put in place to eliminate those hazards and other safety risks of their day-to-day tasks.
So after the job start meeting, I think we need to highlight to the contractors the proper use of personal protective equipment.
The right personal protective equipment can include safety helmets, high visibility vests, safety boots, hand protection, eye and ear protection, and we also must remember in the rail environment not to wear bright reds, greens or yellows. Often overlooked when working outdoors are the things we cannot see that affect our safety. The heat, the sun, sunburn, dehydration, and in other areas the cold, the wet, potential hypothermia, but there's also the smaller hazards of the snakes, insects and spiders.
Some of the most common injuries we see in the rail environment are around slips, trips and falls and safe manual handling. V-Line needs to make sure that our contractors understand how to work in the rail environment to keep themselves safe around those issues. The other important thing is that we make sure our contractors are using tools correctly and that those tools are fit for purpose. Our contract procedures will ensure that we've got qualified and competent contractors working for us. And that's important, Pete, because the quality of their work is paramount to the safety of our network, which ensures the safety of the rail users. V-Line wants to make sure that contractors can look after themselves and that V-Line employees look after the contractors, so we're watching each other's backs. We want to make sure that there's no risk taking in the rail reserve. And we want to make sure that instructions are being followed. It's better to be safe than to be sorry. Working as part of a V-Line team or discreetly, you need to consider safety, your single point of contact, your competency to do the job, workplace behaviour. Remember, your safety is important to V-Line. Work safely.
I'm here today to talk to you about safety within the rail infrastructure. Rail infrastructure consists of many things, including signalling, track work, level crossings, pedestrian crossings, stations, buildings, depots, rail, ballast, sleepers, and other utilities, including power, water and gas. As a contractor to V-Line, you may be required to work in and around the danger zone. The danger zone is an area 3 metres from the track. You will require minimum level 1 track safety awareness, high-vis vests and steel cap footwear. Depending on the work, you may also require additional PPE. When working in or near the danger zone, you are required to have protection in the form of either a lookout or a flagman. Protection arrangements must be discussed with your nominated V-Line contact. Things to remember when in or around the danger zone. Be aware, trains can approach from any direction. When a train is approaching, find a safe place to stand, at least 3 metres from the track. Never step on railhead or walk or stand on tracks. When crossing bridges, viaducts or entering tunnels, make sure you have the appropriate protection in place. In an emergency situation, such as an obstruction to the track like a fallen tree, you need to contact Central via the 1800 number. To warn the driver, you need to walk towards the approaching train with your arms raised above your head, at all times staying clear of the track. That's all from me today, but remember, safety is paramount.
Firstly, I'd like to talk to you about working at heights and working overhead. Any person who is required to undertake any work at a height above 1.8 metres must be trained. Such work may include working on gantries, roofs, embankments and bridges. There will be times when working on a V-line site where you will require a permit to work. You will need a permit to work if working with live plant, such as electrical mechanical isolations, hot work, for example welding, cutting and grinding, confined spaces, excavations and trenching, and roof access. Another critical requirement is fire prevention. It's important to follow site procedures and attend local induction or site team briefings to review fire prevention when works have been undertaken. Some safety points to remember: remove combustible materials from areas where hot work equipment is being used, clean up spills of flammable liquids, wire the materials immediately and dispose of waste as per V-line procedures. Make sure cylinders are stored upright. Never mix gases at storage locations. Use the correct fire extinguisher if required, only if you're appropriately trained. Some contractors' work will involve working with electricity. Electrical works is only to be undertaken by a qualified electrician. Persons who are required to work on high voltage must have a permit to work. Some key points to remember are: use lead stands or insulated hooks to avoid trip hazards. All electrical equipment plugged into power outlets must be tested and tagged. Treat all plant as live and ensure you get authorisation from your V-line contact before working on plant, machinery or switchboards. If you need further advice, your nominated V-line contact can help you. If you are undertaking any demolition and installation works, you must ensure you have all the relevant information about the location of cables, gas meters, meter mains and other underground services such as dial before you dig. Another thing that needs to be considered is asbestos. As a contractor, you must make sure you have access to the V-line asbestos register, stop work immediately if asbestos is found and advise your V-line contact, dispose of waste as per the occupational health and safety and environment legislation. If you work with hazardous substances and dangerous goods, you must keep a register of all hazardous substances and dangerous goods used, stored, handled and transported on V-line sites. You must also have a material safety data sheet for each one, and all chemical storage areas must have bunding. Your plant and equipment must meet the requirements of all relevant legislation, standards and compliance codes. You must inform your nominated V-line contact of planned work activities that could create loud noise or vibration levels. A key point to remember: when working in an environment like this, you must wear the appropriate PPE. As you can see, according to the type of work you do for V-line, there may be special requirements you need to meet. For further information, please refer to the Contractor Handbook.
The previous sections of your induction have focused on the safety requirements for working within the rail reserve. But another important consideration is environmental management. All activities that occur at V-line sites have potential to impact on the environment, and all employees and contractors need to understand and manage these impacts. As a contractor for V-line, you are required to take responsibility for the environment impacts of your work. You will need to identify and monitor environmental issues relating to your work and comply with environmental legislation including acts, regulations and codes of environmental practice. The storage and use of chemicals is a common source of pollution. As previously discussed, prior to bringing any chemicals onto a V-line site, you must notify your nominated V-line contact of what the chemicals are and provide an MSDS. Any chemicals should be used in accordance with their label. Chemicals should be stored in such a way that it reduces the risk of spills and environmental contamination. In particular, chemicals should not be stored near waterways or major drainage paths. For significant quantities of chemical bought on site, you should also provide means of spill containment, such as a spill containment kit.
Another significant source of pollution relates to earthworks. The excavation and movement of soil can result in dust, polluting the air, and erosion, which can pollute waterways with sediment. It is your responsibility to ensure your works comply with EPA's requirements for dust, erosion, and sediment control. Some basic measures which can be implemented to reduce your impacts include minimising the area of soil excavated or the volume stockpiled, locating stockpiles away from waterways and major drainage paths, and ensuring the site is left in the same or better condition than when you found it. Different wastes need to be disposed of in different ways. Generally speaking, you should maintain good housekeeping whilst working for V-Line. More specifically, as a contractor, you should make efforts to reduce the amount of waste you produce, securely store waste to prevent litter and pollution, never store waste near waterways or on significant vegetation, never dispose of waste to ground, stormwater or sewer, place waste in the correct bins, and never leave waste, including hazardous waste, within the rail reserve.
The protection of native vegetation is one of the more critical environmental issues relevant to V-Line. Past incident of vegetation removal by contractors has resulted in breaches of legislation. As a contractor, you must follow any guidance provided by V-Line in relation to vegetation management. And if in doubt, check with your nominated V-Line contact before, and we underline before, taking action that may damage vegetation.
You may be surprised to learn that vegetation management is an important issue for a rail operator. But the truth is, some of the plant species found in the V-Line Rail Reserve are found nowhere else. Biosites are areas within the rail reserve which are known to contain protected species.
Any contractor who is involved in conducting works that may impact on a protective native vegetation will be issued with a copy of V-Line's biosite register. Work that has potential to impact on vegetation should not occur within a biosite unless specific permission has been obtained from V-Line. It is your responsibility to ensure that you do not encroach on a biosite.
The Biosite Register is a useful tool for employees and contractors alike, but it is only a guide. There is potential for protected vegetation to exist outside of biosites. For this reason, it is necessary to minimise the impacts you have on surrounding vegetation, regardless of the biosite status or what the vegetation looks like. If your work impacts on vegetation, always double check with your nominated V-Line contact that either the vegetation is not protected or the necessary permits are in place.
Although not strictly an environmental issue, fire management is an important consideration for anyone working within the rail reserve.
So what do contractors need to do to minimise the risk of fire in the reserve?
During the fire danger period, normally November to April, any contractor introducing an ignition source to the rail reserve, such as slashers, welders or grinders, must check with their nominated V-Line contact about what controls need to be in place. The rail network is an important part of Victoria's history, and as such, many of V-Line's stations, buildings and even signalling equipment is heritage listed. This means they are protected under legislation.
And it's not just European heritage values which need to be protected within the reserve. Indigenous or Aboriginal heritage is another important aspect which needs to be considered. Any heritage issues associated with your work should be identified to you by your nominated V-Line contact. When working on a site with heritage values, additional care should be taken to ensure work outside the defined scope is not performed. When working within the rail reserve, some heritage values, particularly Indigenous heritage, may not be identified to you before you commence work. If during the course of your works you come across something that you believe may be of heritage value, you should report it to your nominated V-Line contact as soon as possible. So Laurie, we've talked about how contractors can reduce their environmental impacts such as pollution or vegetation damage, But what should they do if something does go wrong?
If a contractor causes or observes an environmental incident, such as a spill, they should make efforts to control the accident where it is safe and appropriate to do so. Just like safety incidents, all environmental incidents need to be reported to train control.
So that's it. We've covered all the key environmental aspects that contractors need to consider when they're working for V-Line.
Yes, in general, contractors are required to identify and understand the environmental impacts associated with their work and comply with relevant legislation and regulations.
Well, this brings us to the end of the induction. Remember the key points. You must have a purchase order before you start work in order to get paid on time. Report to the assigned V-Line person when you arrive on site. And follow all of the V-Line procedures to ensure that you are always acting within the law. Remember, at V-Line, your safety and that of everyone around you relies on you doing the right thing. Thank you for watching our induction. We look forward to working with you.